At American University, we have built a legacy of leadership, scholarship, and service fueled by a passionate commitment to bettering our communities. That legacy now includes a strategic plan focused on preparing AU changemakers to make a real impact on the world. American University Alumni Association Affinity Groups are committed to supporting this plan. Our affinity groups are dedicated to promoting and supporting the university's commitment to inclusive excellence. We celebrate individual identities and common experiences. We foster a sense of community, seeking to support both students and fellow alumni in developing personal and professional networks. With a broad range of affinity programming, we eagerly seek your active participation. AU's alumni affinity groups are connecting graduates and students by providing mentorship, network opportunities, and student outreach. For example, our Black and Latino alumni alliances promote the Book Awards, which are scholarships that support access and equity for students of color. The Pride Alumni Alliance, in conjunction with the Center for Diversity and Inclusion, hosts an annual Pride Friendsgiving for members of the LGBTQ community and allies, which offers an inclusive space to commune during the Thanksgiving holiday. AU is a place to celebrate our identities, to strengthen the bonds that tie us together. We're creating a more diverse community, student experience, and building a stronger university. Join us as we celebrate you, celebrate us, celebrate one AU.
There we go. Apologies. Buenas tardes. Gracias por asistir y estar con nosotros en comunidad. Me llamo Diana Alonso Watkins y soy el chair de la Alianza de Alumnos Latinos. Como representante, bienvenidos a nuestra plática con miembros de LAA, estudiantes de LAA y también la administración de la universidad. AU vicepresidente doctora Fanta A y presidenta Sylvia Burwell. Como chair de LAA, agradezco a presidenta Burwell, doctora A y Edwina Sims por su liderazgo y apoyo para esta presentación. Para reconocer las vidas y tierras indígenas, nosotros reconocemos, ofrecemos nuestro respeto y elevamos el corazón de los guardianes originales de la tierra nunca cedida desde donde American University transmite este encuentro. El territorio de Nacochunk, Anacostan y Piscataway. Good evening, and thank you everyone for joining us. My name is Diana Alonso Watkins, and I'm the chair of the American University's Latino Alumni Alliance. On behalf of LAA, I want to extend my appreciation and thanks for everyone joining us. I'm welcoming you all to this roundtable conversation with alumni, students from our Latin community, AU's Vice President of Campus Life and Inclusive Excellence, Dr. Fanta Ah, and American University's President, Sylvia Burwell. As chair of LAA, I want to extend my sincerest appreciation for President Burwell, Dr. Ah, and Edwina Sims from the Alumni Office for their leadership and support for this evening's event. The purpose of tonight's event is for us to come together and recognize the Latin community, alumni and students, and the university's dedication and commitment to creating and sustaining a truly inclusive environment at AU. For our land acknowledgement, in honor of our Indigenous ancestors and their unceded lands. Over the centuries, numerous tribes have laid claim to and shared the lands at the confluence of the Anacostia and Potomac rivers, territory once broadly known as Patawomeck and Kahangoranton, and today as Washington, D.C. American University sits within those lands that were taken from its first peoples by the colonial powers of the 17th century via conflict and a string of broken treaties and promises. Today, we highlight those failed promises while also gratefully acknowledging the resilient and steadfast Piscataway peoples as the sovereign stewards of their ancestral homelands on which we gather, and the diverse and vibrant Indigenous communities who make their home here today, including Mayan and Quechua. With this acknowledgement, we commit to working to dismantle the ongoing impacts of settler colonialism. Now, I'd like to pass the program to a proud AU Aguila and advisory board member for the AU Sine Institute of Policy and Politics, Janet Rodriguez, who will be leading tonight's discussion. Janet is, we're thrilled for Janet to be a part of our LAA community and serving in this role as moderator. She is a 4-time Emmy Award-winning journalist, a White House correspondent for Univision, and a former correspondent for Telemundo. She's a proud graduate of the School of Communications and a former fellow of AU Sine Institute. Janet, I will turn it over to you. Gracias.
Gracias a ti, Diana. So great to hear. And thank you for your continued leadership of the Latino Alumni Alliance. I know the past couple of years through the pandemic have been really challenging, but we're grateful for your volunteer leadership to continue to elevate the important voice and presence of our community through alumni affinity engagement like this evening. So yes, as Diana said, I'll serve as your MC moderator for tonight. So we would like to hear from you. Thank you for taking the time. I know it's a little late, dinner time, but this is a really important conversation. So we truly thank you for being here with us. And tonight's platform is for our community to engage with American University's President, Sylvia Burwell, and Dr. Fanta Ah, the Vice President for Campus Life and Inclusive Excellence, to better understand the university's commitment to AU's Latinos community. Before I introduce the program's participant, it is my esteemed pleasure to introduce our 15th president and the first woman to serve as AU's president. She's a visionary leader with sizable experience in both public and private sectors and brings to AU her extensive knowledge of managing complex organizations and advancing solutions to some of those world's most pressing challenges. Please join us in welcoming President Sylvia Burwell.
Janet, thank you so much. And Janet, thank you so much for coming tonight and being our moderator and joining this effort and always being there to help and support the AU community and especially our Latino Alumni Alliance. And I want to thank our Latino Alumni Alliance for your leadership and for hosting this event this evening. And we deeply appreciate your commitment to this entire community and the broader AU community. Special thanks also to our panelists, which Janet will introduce: Raphael, Daniel, Sarah, Yami, Tiffany, as well as you, Diana, as our current chair. We appreciate your leadership. And I'm grateful for the partnership and investment that you all have made in helping to advance our inclusive excellence work here at AU. And to those who have joined us maybe for the first time, or for those who are joining this conversation many times and just returning, to everyone, a welcome home. We value your feedback and engagement, which is why we wanted to have a session like this. And we are so proud that you are alumni and students, because we have some of our students here this evening of American University. And I want to start by saying that something that resonates, and I think we know it, and I think it was even on the screen in terms of the video that Jonathan did, and that's, if you want to go far, go alone. I'm sorry, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And that is why community is actually a set out part of our strategy. Our strategy, Change Makers for a Changing World. In our strategy, it has learning, it has scholarship, and you'd see that at many universities, but you wouldn't always see community. And that is an important concept and something that we want to make sure differentiates American University. And when I first came to AU, I really did get a sense of the immense potential of our community, that in order for us to make critical progress, though, we needed to accelerate our work and our work around community, our work around diversity, our work around equity, and our work around inclusion. And as a community, we built a strategic plan that included that notion. And actually, our inclusive excellence part of our work actually came even before our strategy. The overall strategy. So it was the first element of the strategy. And based on community feedback, our inclusive excellence work has prioritized 3 goals. And that's building a sense of belonging for all members of our community, ensuring all of our students have access to the full AU experience, and advancing diversity, equity, and inclusion throughout our teaching, our learning, and our research missions. And we are incredibly grateful for our AU community, some of whom are actually on this panel, for their involvement in the President's Council for Diversity and Inclusion. Dr. Sarah Nieves-Graval was on the inaugural committee and was a legacy in terms of creating the first President's Council. And she was representing our Latinx community, and that continued with Rafael and as well as Yami. When she was our president of our student government. And so thanks to you all for your service and engagement in that work. And the work, I think, that we're talking about is vitally important. And it's now more than ever as we prepare this next generation of change makers for what we hope is a more equitable and inclusive work environment and society in general. And while we know that there are many more steps on our AU journey, we are making progress. We've introduced the Latinx Studies minor. We've expanded our faculty development through the Center of Teaching and Learning to ensure that our classrooms are more welcoming and providing multiple perspectives. AU has joined the National Center for Faculty Development and Diversity, which supports faculty success and builds networks across institutions, and doctoral students as well as postdocs are invited to participate. And now at AU, we have 48 faculty that are members of our Anti-Racist Research and Policy Center. And they come from across all of the AU schools. And the vision is to collaborate on cross-disciplinary impact research on anti-racism in fields such as criminal justice, public policy, education, and the arts. And in supporting student access and success, the university has committed to enhancing our socioeconomic diversity as well as supporting first-generation students. And we actively recruit in key states around the country, including California and many states in the Southwest region. And we're happy to note that retention among our Latinx and first-gen and Pell eligible students are strong at this time. So we're actively also engaged with the Hispanic Scholarship Fund, and in particular with the Hispanic Career Pathways Initiative, which is creating pathways for access, equity, and success for our Latinx identifying student population, as well as the National Hispanic Institute, which is the longest serving Latino youth organization and supports high achieving, lower income Latinx students. So while we've seen some progress and these are important steps, we know that we have a lot more work to do. and we're excited about that. And I'm very excited to hear this roundtable discussion and see it as an opportunity to further understand our needs, our concerns, important members of our Eagle community. So I look forward to the panel's discussion. Janet, thank you for moderating. And I'm also looking forward to the questions from many of you who have joined us this evening. And thanks again, everybody, for taking the time out of your busy schedules to be a part of this dialogue and conversation. Janet, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, President Burwell. It does take a village. It's all on to us, and not just the president, but the community as a whole, to make this the forefront of what we want to do and how we want to improve in inclusiveness and diversity, especially within the Latino community at AU. So we recognize your commitment, Dr. Burwell, and the work that you do to lead AU's plan for inclusive excellence, and your constant level of availability and assistance for all of our students. So we truly appreciate you being part of tonight's discussion. And like she said, this is meant to be a community event, so we look forward to your questions. There is a function within the Zoom, a Q&A feature, to ask the question, or just simply share some thoughtful feedback on areas of improvement or highlight spaces where the university is doing a good job and where the university could also improve. So we really look forward to that. And without further ado, I want to introduce the voices that will be joining me tonight at the table. They're representatives of LAA, past, present, and future, and we welcome Rafael Cestero, Daniel Alejandro Leon Davis, Dr. Sara Nieves Grafals, Yamile Yami Payano, and Tiffany Rowe. Yeah, I'll be asking questions of each of them, but please feel free to also add your questions as they come up for each of the guests. So a little bit about myself. I came to the US when I was 12, and I came to Washington during a high school trip and fell in love with AU. And I said, this is a university I want to come to. I was one of those Latino students that was able to take advantage of what was available to us at the time. And through a scholarship, I landed at AU. And the rest is history. I was able through AU to forge a career in journalism and secure what was the first dedicated White House correspondent position for Univision. I left that position back in December to join Meta, but I was very lucky that now I've gone through this journey of journalism and now internal communications at Meta with my learnings from my AU days. And I recall being at the White House every day, living history and sharing stories with audiences, highlighting the topics that reflected our community. And now I get to do that internally at a huge company like Meta. And as a triple AU Águila, I want to ask Sara Nieves, who has more experience than any of us here and has as many degrees as you could probably have from AU. How was attending American University influence your personal and professional life?
Thank you, Janet. I came from Puerto Rico when I was 18 years old, right after high school, with a dream of becoming a clinical psychologist. And American University opened doors and helped me to fulfill that dream. I finished my last year of undergraduate work at AU in 1975, and then went on to complete a master's and a PhD here, all with the help of scholarships. At the Department of Psychology, I found a very nurturing but rigorous environment that encouraged excellence. When I wanted to do research related to Latinos, we did not have in-house subject matter expertise, but my professors encouraged me, and we found outside consultants to round up my thesis and dissertation committees. I went on to have a 32-year private practice as a clinical psychologist, working with people from all over the world, especially those suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. 10 years ago, I retired, and I came back to AU as a volunteer to give back, doing fundraising for scholarships. I was on the Alumni Board, on the President's Council on Diversity and Inclusion, LAA, and now in the College of Arts and Sciences Advisory Council. But even as I work to give back, AU continues to enrich my life through involvement with students, mentoring, learning through the alumni audit program, contact with my former professors and people from the psychology department, and participating in our wonderful world-class art museum. So AU continues to have a very special place in my heart, and it is a privilege to be here. Thank you.
It's a never-ending learning experience, right?
Correct.
Right. And one who's still learning and who's still in school is Tiffany Roy. So I want to ask you, Tiffany, for your perspective as a current student, we would love to hear from you. The campus culture has evolved. I'm sure it's much different from when Dr. Nieves was there to when I was there just about 15 years ago to now. And the structure of the campus is completely grown and different. So what are the 3 points of pride that you would consider sharing with prospective Aguila, who is considering American University, or a current student who may need additional encouragement to continue their journey as a Latino student at AU?
Hi, Janet. Thank you so much for asking. I think a first point of pride that I would say for Latinx students at AU is definitely the Latinx Studies minor. I'm currently a Latinx Studies minor as I switched from solely being a Spanish minor. And for this change, I enjoyed the Spanish program at AU during my freshman year, but I found myself wanting more of like the history and what's going on culturally in the Latinx world. And also a means of connecting with my own heritage, because I feel like in Spanish classes, we don't really talk about some certain countries, like my own, like Panama. And so luckily, while I was contemplating all of this, the Latinx minor was released in last spring. And switching to a Latinx minor has really emphasized the importance of being a Latina in this community, especially a predominantly white institution. And exposing myself to topics that I wouldn't usually explore in my SOC classes. Like this semester, I'm taking a course on being a Latinx sci-fi and just learning about how sci-fi correlates with immigration and racism and important topics in the Latinx community. And even when I come back from studying abroad, I'm going to be taking a course about Central Americans in DC and learning, possibly getting to know more about my culture and other cultures who I don't really get to learn about. And then a second point of pride, I would say, is being part of the Eagles El Aguila. If you love to write and if you're are one of the Latinx, if you are of Latinx background, I would really suggest joining the Eagle and El Aguila because it's our university's smallest section and it's solely Latinx and Hispanic writing. The section is essentially a safe place for Latinx and Hispanic students, as the majority of the Eagle is comprised of white students, which can make conversations about identity on campus harder and for other students to fully understand. And I feel like there's pride in being not only able to talk in your native language and write in it, but also to write about issues specifically pertaining to Latin identity on campus, from like covering AU's League of United Latin American Citizens community building events, to interviewing the workers on campus that the great majority are of Latinx and Hispanic descent. And it's definitely an eye opener. So I definitely suggest that. And then my last point, I'll be quick, is the diverse Latin American population at our school. Like in my own experiences within my classes, I've met so many Latinx students from all over. One of my roommates and my closest friends, she's Colombian, and we've bonded over similar heritages and upbringings. And even in my classes in SOC and being a Latinx minor, I've met students from Mexico, Cuba, Peru, Chile, and so many more, and with different racial backgrounds. And I think there's so much Latin American presence on campus, and you can see it emulated not only through the students, but as well as the faculty. And for example, one of my psych professors last semester was Venezuelan, and I found myself excited to see a woman of color and thrive in STEM and be admired by our classes. So I definitely think the diversity is amazing, and continue to work with that. Thank you.
And that's really inspirational for the students that are here now and the students of the future. Thank you for sharing that. And on to Dr. Fanta. American University continues the ongoing work to diversify their faculty and staff. So I'm interested in knowing, how will AU bolster the recruitment and retention of Latinx, including Afro-Latinos, Asian Latinx, and Latin American faculty and staff, to boost the professional support provided to our community and ensure an inclusive and welcoming campus climate?
Thank you, Janet, and it's great to be with all of you, and particularly many familiar faces. We've been on a journey together for many years, so it's great to be reconnected. Regarding your question around the faculty and staff, in particular recruitment and the retention, it is a work in progress. We have ways to go in terms of doing more in that space for sure. There are a couple of initiatives that I would say over the past few years that are beginning to yield. And I think Tiffany, spoke a little bit about some of that as you're beginning to see some of it in your classes, and so forth. Part of it is making sure that as we're recruiting, one of the areas in particular for the provost area has been to look at what we call opportunity hires. And what those are is it's not new. It has happened on with several institutions, and that is finding opportunities where you really know that the talent is there and you compete for that talent in the ways that you need to compete for to get the best faculty that you can, specifically coming in from backgrounds that are not as well represented. And also making sure that the faculty that you're also bringing in are not in what we would call your usual subject areas, right? So you're bringing in faculty not just for the world language and cultural studies program, but you're bringing faculty for the STEM field. You're bringing in faculty for psychology, as we've talked about, bringing faculty for political science, etc. So that's been one of the things that the university is spending more time on and more energy on, is really to make sure that we are diversifying the faculty at that level. In addition, it's also making sure that the faculty who are coming in, that there's really a community, and there's a community of scholars that are here that in many ways motivates them to remain here. And so our ability to create those communities are important. And as President Burwell said, whether it's the Anti-Racist Policy and Research Center and bringing in faculty from 48 different sectors and all school represented, ensures that faculty who may be the only one in their department is not feeling isolated and is finding a community and is finding support. That becomes an important part of it. It is key to create the pipeline, particularly for faculty. We know that by the time we're hiring faculty, we really need to start, frankly, earlier. We need to encourage students to think about going into doctoral programs and to think about the different disciplines of doctoral programs that then they become the faculty of the future. And so some of our colleges have started to do postdoc program, particularly with a focus on diversity and inclusion, and are beginning to hire postdoctoral students from diverse backgrounds to be able to come and to be introduced to not only the university, and even if they don't end up staying at American University because they've made other choices, we're still building that pipeline, and that pipeline needs to be fortified. So those are some of the way. On the staff side, the big piece has to do with really looking at where we're advertising our positions. Also how the positions are written so that it is really written with an invitation for folks when they're looking at these opportunities are not saying, oh, this is not for me. So the ability to have our human resources really focus on inclusive hiring, and then we have broadened the different places that we advertise. About a few years ago, perhaps we advertised in 13 or 14. Now we're advertising in 40 plus areas where the human resources has really sort of sourced out the different places that we can make sure that folks know that there are positions and that we're here. And then there's the LA Affinity Group on campus that is here to support the community that is here. So I would say it's a work in progress. It's both the hiring, it is the strategy for the curriculum that you put in place, it is the retention and how you build communities for those who are here.
Thank you, Dr. And I think it's a great engagement, and it takes, like I said in the beginning, a village, and what you're doing to be able to bring the professors and the students to be the professors of the future. It's you have your hands full there. So I want to go now to Rafael Cestero, who is a former student leader within the Latinx community and a member of the President's Council for Diversity and Inclusion. And as that, you leverage your activism to elevate the voices of those on campus who oftentimes felt silenced. And what are some of the plans I want to hear from you? You hope to see the university activate to help reconnect with students and create more opportunities for student voices and engaging decisions.
Well, thank you, Janet. I think, one, I see a lot of familiar faces like everyone else, so that's exciting. And, Tiffany, I wish I had a Latinx minor when I was on campus, and I wish I had the El Aguila. So I think I need to talk to Dr. Ah and President Burwell that didn't happen sooner. But I think, to me, it's really important. I know with Yami, when we were on campus, we started a student advisory council to the President's Council for Diversity and Inclusion. And I think that was really important, because what we realized was when we were sitting on the President's Council for Diversity and Inclusion, there was maybe 2 students. And that wasn't a broad enough expansion of the diverse populations that we had on campus, giving their voices. Of course, those students that were sitting at PCDI could go out and listen, but we really needed a structured format that they could hear feedback from multiple communities that they weren't even a part of. And so I think it's important that we create more structured opportunities for student leaders to hear from their fellow students, right? Because I think some of the times as student leaders, we are in the conversations and we are meeting with people and we don't hear all of what is going on campus. We're in a different silo. And so I think it's important to structuralize the different listening opportunities. I used to always say that on campus that I was always learning, right? Being a student leader is just about always learning. You're always learning about different things. And I hoped that I created an environment that people knew I was a student leader and that they felt they could come to me with different options. And so I think it's also important that student leaders make themselves available, whether that's in person, over social media, over Zoom now that we have it, which is something I wish I had when I was there. So I wasn't having to run to the bridge to the dev, to the bridge to the dev. But I think those are the things that I would say. And then one point that I make always when talking about student leadership is that it has been my experience that they are open to listening to you. So apply for the student leadership positions or take leadership on your own and know that the people on the screen here, Dr. Odd, President Burwell, Dr. Taylor, the people in CDI, they really are willing to listen. And the complaint I got or thought I got a lot was, does it actually matter? Well, you know, Dr. Odd just mentioned this, that they're increasing where they're recruiting their staff from, where they're posting their job. That was a conversation I remember having my sophomore year at AU when I first sat on PCDI. It was, how do we bring in diverse staff and faculty? Well, my point was you have to make sure that diverse faculty and staff see the postings, because if you don't post them in places that they're going to see it, you're never going to get them. And so now that's something they're doing. So all of that is to say, well, there's tons more that we can do. There are steps being in place and things that students are saying are getting implemented.
That's great. And it's never too late for alums to also come back and be part of that leadership training and join the conversation. So I encourage people like us who have, you know, maybe not coming back for studies, but are going to need to come back to be part of the community and continue to raise our voices to make AU a more inclusive place. And Yami Payano has been doing that for a few years now. She was one of AU's former student government presidents. You were in a position to lead and support the student body on a variety of issues. As an Águila, you represented the student body and you were a strong representation for current and future members of our community, inspiring them to see themselves within the progress of AU. So what legacy do you hope to create for future Eagles, particularly those from historically marginalized communities?
Buenas noches. I hope that for me, sort of having places where people can be themselves and be the authentic self and bring that to the table is very important. And I hope that that was part of what continues to be built upon, right? Things change, time changes. What I did at my time at AU might, you know, need to be changed in the future, but I hope that as an alumni, I continue to foster that, not only for the current students, those to come, and even alumni themselves, right? I think the other thing that I really hope to continue doing is sort of continue to implement diversity and inclusion practices around everything we do and bring them up and make conversations uncomfortable. Because sometimes being like a leader requires you to bring uncomfortable things, and change requires you to bring things that, you know, sometimes are not acknowledged yet. So I do that in my day-to-day life as CEO and co-founder of Science Speak, and, you know, trying to to bring in more people to the table and broaden that access is very important. And then, of course, lastly, I hope that I can continue to give my time and resources and money to the school so that then, you know, future Aguilas have the resources that they can to go to school full funded and be able to do the things that many other students that have the privilege to that come from a more wealthier background can do. So really, I really hope that as I move forward in my career, I'm able to pay back not only with my time, but also with some money donations so that people can get what they need at AU and continue to grow and focus on learning rather than jobs and internships, you know? So yeah, so those are my big aspirations.
Thank you for that. And on to Daniel Alejandro, last but not least, there is tremendous, of course, power within our community, and it is amazing the impact we can create when we collectively rally behind the initiative. So the LAA Book Award is a fine example of how our interest to apply resources and invest in the lives of Hispanic Latin students has led to a fully endowed scholarship. So big applauses to that. So what are some avenues that may be of particular interest for the Latino and Hispanic community, especially as we work to find ways to see ourselves in the Change Cannot Wait campaign and promoting AU's plans for inclusive excellence?
Hey everyone, thank you so much, Janet, and so good to see so many familiar faces. I think in thinking about the campaign, what excites me the most is the fact that we're being asked to be a part of it. Right? We're being asked to come to the table, not just in these conversations. I know for me, being an alumni board member at the time that the campaign was being built out, it was really beautiful to see how much input the school is asking for us, right? And so, as you mentioned, thinking about how AU has and will continue to expand in this realm, like we have to look at the past, right? Since 2018, AU has literally increased the funding for equity-based funding and support by 48%. That's huge. A big part of that is things like the LAA Book Award, right? Like I was there as before it even got endowed and seeing how the community really came together for that. And so every time I come and think about AU, the piece that I come back to is this idea of community, this idea that like, what role we have, not just as students, but as we think about alumni, is like, how do we show up, not just in our giving, and it doesn't just always have to be giving money. There's a lot of folks who graduate and go on to amazing jobs and might not be in the financial place to be able to give back right away, right? We know that as Latinos, we oftentimes have a lot of family obligations that we have to take care of first, but knowing that like, you can also give back with your time. Be it as a volunteer, for example, in regards to one of the committees or the alumni board, or thinking about even how do you give back your time? There's like alumni in the classroom, which I've done a couple of times, right? And just being able to come to speak, but also thinking about mentorship. I have a number of mentees who are all AU grads or are currently at AU, and I think being intentional about the community piece is important. And the thing I'll end with in regards to this is like, it really is about how much we get involved, right? We know that, I know I met Dr. All literally like week 1 of being on campus. And for me, it was because I was out and undocumented. And I was like, hey, where are the resources? Because I was told that AU has these, right? And I think just being intentional about being able to ask, and as Yami was saying, being able to be uncomfortable, knowing that it has a broader impact on our community. And so I'm excited for the campaign. I'm excited to really see us come together. And I think this is a call for us, you know, AU being such a activist-based like university. I think this is a call for us to also step up, challenge the university in regards to the direction in which they're taking certain aspects when it comes to equity. It's amazing what you all are doing, but also we know that there's something bigger, and it's us challenging that's gonna get us there.
That's great. And just like that, time has escaped us, and we've come to our Q&A. So I want to let you know that we do have a few more minutes for questions and answers. We do have one question, so if you have any others, please come up and answer that question. Now is your opportunity. So speaking of resources, as he was doing, that question comes right into that, and I want to read that for you. Earlier, you expressed, and I think this is in reference to the comments that were being made by President Burwell, how much AU is working to give lower income Latin students the full college experience in the name of diversity and inclusion. What will AU do to help these students who have been denied housing and as upperclassmen and do not have access to resources to live off campus?
Fanta, oh, go ahead, Fanta, and I'll join. You go ahead.
No, I can take the first part of it. The first part of this is that for me, as head of campus life, I would love to have every single student live on campus. Let me just start there. For a myriad of reasons, both developmentally, everything else. Unfortunately, we are limited in our housing inventory. And also we have a requirement because of zoning that we have to house our first year students and we have to house our sophomore students because of neighbor relations and all of that. For students who would have to therefore live off campus, whatever their aid package is, that aid package also carry forward for off campus. So if it included anything that would cover those, it wouldn't just stop because you're not living on campus. And I think that's one of the first things that I think is important. The second thing is that with off campus, we are working with our housing office with off campus housing resources and are trying to locate what are all of the different avenues that are available to students in terms of off-campus housing, whether it's closer to campus or further out, and also leveraging the UPass program. That was a program that we were able to negotiate with WMATA a while back, so that transportation costs does not also becomes a huge burden. Is this a challenge? Absolutely is a challenge. And we're going to continue to work with our students, but we are unfortunately limited in housing. We have put as part of the campus plan to build out more housing. That is not unfortunately going to come anytime soon for those students who are currently here, but those are some of the things that we have.
Thank you, Fanta. I think you covered all of the elements, including that, we do have additional housing in the campus plan as we think to the future. And as we think it's helpful to hear a question like that, because, the question of whether or not you move to keep everyone on campus, that you require it. And a number of the students don't prefer that in their junior and senior years. As we go forward. So the question is helpful in terms of understanding that for some of our students that this continues to be a priority, and we understood that, which is why we have put additional housing in the campus plan. And as Dr. Oz said, that doesn't necessarily handle the problem right now for students, but as we think about the long term and how we think about that, knowing that there is a desire to be on campus, they're the reasons we think, but understanding what the students think is also important.
And let us take one more question. Many international students from Latin America, including Mexico, Dominican Republic, Panama, are studying and also working at AU. How does AU expect to support and retain these students when they are restricted from working over 20 hours or taking other jobs based on their visa, and the current stipend and hourly rates aren't enough to live in the DMV area?
And I'll let President Burwell and others chime in. It's a great question, and it is a challenging one because, unfortunately, the immigration regulations, as we very well know, are not something that the university regulates. What we do try to do is that, if we can identify, particularly on-campus employment, we know that international students in particular have so fewer options because of their immigration status. Those who are on student visa, we try to leverage that. At the graduate level, when students are being admitted, they also compete for merit scholarships and also for graduate assistantships. And those are one of the ways that international students in particular, are able to be here. And that's one of the reasons also why we have more international students at the graduate level than we generally do at the undergraduate level. As part of our fundraising, we have identified that there is a need to raise more funding to support particularly international students, as you know, the question has indicated. That is again a work in progress. You know, for the restricted scholarships that are available at the university, if it does not specifically indicate that students who are international are not eligible, we try to allocate those as well as part of the package to complement. But is it a challenge? Yes, it is, because between the immigration issues and the continuing cost, that is definitely continues to be a challenge.
I would just add that, you know, this issue, whether it's international students or our domestic students, in terms of making sure that we're working hard on the scholarships. In the campaign so far already, the campaign that has been mentioned, our campaign Change Can't Wait, a $500 million comprehensive campaign. It's a comprehensive campaign, not a capital campaign, because much of the fundraising we're doing is actually it's actually focused on students. It's focused on program. It's focused on faculty, not on buildings. There's one part that is buildings, but we have already raised 90 additional scholarships, but we look to raise more. And the international student issue is one, as Dr. Robb mentioned, is one of the needs that we are trying to see if we can find more support and help as we do that. I think everybody probably on this knows that, you know, American universities 90% tuition and fee dependent. And so as we work to further diversify, that's a big part of what we're doing in terms of the scholarship raising, as we think about research funding so that we can get that externally funded and continue to move in that direction so that we can try and help more of our students.
And we'll take one last question before we end the panel. AU launched a faculty and staff affinity group as part of the strategic plan, including the Latino and Hispanic faculty and staff affinity group. What plans do you have to further support programming for these groups and enhance their visibility to connect them to current students, faculty, staff, and alumni?
I will start, and I'm sure Dr. Robb will want to join in. One of the things that I actually believe is that the next time that we have a session like this, it should be joint. That we bring in the affinity groups as well as the alumni. I think that that's a part of getting the groups and together. And we have several members, I think, actually, that are both we may have tonight, but actually specifically focusing on how we bring the groups together. The other thing is right now our head of HR and our vice president for people actually meet with the affinity groups so that we are making sure that the work and the voice that they're doing are further integrated in terms of some of these kinds of questions about programmatic work. We also want to be guided by what the groups think that they want and need in terms of the different affinity groups. But Dr. Robb, I'll let you chime in as well.
No, I think that's an important question, and I think there are a couple of things that would have to continue to work with HR because I think with our affinity groups, certainly the service that they provide is incredibly valuable on a lot of levels, both for building community and also, frankly, I think for staff retention and for the mentorship potential with students. And so I do think that that's an area certainly where there's room to do more in that space. The other piece that I think also we have to recognize is that the pandemic has really made it incredibly challenging on a lot of levels, and staff, with work time and everything else. And so I do think that that has been also one element of it. But this is certainly something that I think is an important question. And is there more that can be done? Yes. Is it going to look the same for all of the affinity groups? No, because I think it's important for the affinity groups to also help articulate with HR what are the areas of priorities that they deem important. I know, for example, with our Latino affinity groups, one of the things that they had expressed interest in and had taken on a while back had to do with mentoring of students and having these mentorship programs, which may look very different for the Black affinity group, which may look very different for the people of color affinity groups as well. But that is an area where we need to make more progress. And one of the things we also talked about was the need to figure out what are some formal ways to recognize, whether it's making sure that those who are in leadership role are getting recognized by their supervisor, that making sure that at least once a cycle and so forth, bringing them together with President Burwell and others to talk about what are their areas of interest and things. So there's still work, I think, that needs to be done there.
Thank you. And Yami, do you have a one last comment before we wrap?
I just wanted to say, and I always encourage people to look for opportunities outside of campus as well, especially when we're talking about sort of exposure to things. It is good to follow guidance, just like we're very good at telling the university when they need to do better. I think we should also lead by example individually and look for other sources outside of the DC area, which is plentiful. Especially, I say there's more for students and alumni than I do for staff and faculty. I'll let Fanta, President Burwell take care of that. But if you're a student or if you're an alumni, I would say leverage a lot the community around DC and take that ownership in yourself to get the kind of exposure that you want. Eventually you will get it. When you knock in enough doors, someone will open it for you.
That's right. And we know there's some unanswered questions on our chat. We'll go ahead and answer those. If you want to keep posting a question or two, we'll have our guests definitely get back to you. But we have unfortunately run out of time. So I want to take this opportunity to thank again our roundtable panelists for the level of transparency and forward thinking and their responses on how to elevate and inspire community members. It has been my honor serving as your moderator for this evening discussion, and I truly look forward to advancing our work together and making impact for AU's LAA and all of AU's Eagles. And with that, I want to turn it over to the president, Sylvia Burwell, for closing remarks.
Janet, first, thank you so much. You are always so wonderful to give of your time and come and be a part of it. So thank you, and thanks to the panelists. Thanks to the LAA leadership. I'm going to turn things back over to Diana in just a minute, but I also want to thank Dr. Jonathan Mathis, who's the chair of the AU Alumni Board, for his steadfast leadership in bringing the alumni community together and supporting these kinds of events too. And I just want to thank everybody who took the time to join us this evening. I think we covered a lot of ground in terms of ways that our alumni can engage and help support us. You engaged tonight by helping us understand the things that are on your mind in terms of, and our students too, in terms of the things and places where we can do better. That is a contribution that we welcome. We talked about the campaign, everything from the book award to the campaign to the scholarships. That's another way that some people may be able to contribute and help. There is the issue of mentoring, which is so important to our students in terms of having that place to turn to, having someone that you feel has lived your experience that you can turn to and ask for counsel and advice and help. There are internships, there's help with employment. There are all kinds of ways for all of you all to engage, and we hope that you will. And I want to encourage you to connect either with Raina or Edwina if you'd like more details about any of those kinds of opportunities. And I guess I want to kind of just come to the end. I want to say I hope I'm going to see you at an MCAR. And if you've never attended one of our multicultural alumni reunions, I would recommend it highly. It is one of the most energizing and actually fun events at the university every year, and looking forward to our time. And I'm very hopeful that it will be in person, the next one that we're able to do. And lastly, I just want to say thank you. The AU community, what is unique about it is our community. It's our community and our passion for change and our passion for making this world a better place. And this group, our Latino Alumni Alliance, is an incredibly important part of that change that we're doing, not just at our university, but around the world. So thank you all so much for joining us. And Dinah, I'm going to turn it right back to you.
Hola, hola. Bueno, quiero decir gracias a Presidenta Burwell y Doctora Ah por por la plática y también por la dedicación y liderazgo acerca de justicia y igualdad para la universidad con el Inclusive Excellence Plan y también el progreso que han hecho y las transformaciones que hemos visto. Yo claramente he visto el trabajo que han hecho y aunque falta un poco más, claro, a mejorar la universidad, hay bastante progreso que han hecho y agradezco el apoyo de ellos. Quiero también decir gracias a Daniel, Yami, a Rafael, Sara y Tiffany y Janet por su apoyo y por su voz. Cada uno tiene un voz distinto para la comunidad de alumnos y agradezco mucho lo que han dicho y cómo apoyan nuestra comunidad. Y claro, como Daniel dijo en sus comentarios, que hay que avanzar, hay que step up. Y claro, les invito a todos en el Latino Alumni Alliance a encontrar oportunidades a ser más presente con nuestros programas, con sus consejos acerca de los programas que hacemos y también solidaridad entre nosotros. Claro que nosotros tenemos, es bien complejo nuestra comunidad. A la misma vez hay que tener solidaridad para nosotros mismos y también para los estudiantes. Y la última cosa es que ya en abril, el 9 de abril, vamos a tener el Spring Brunch de LAA. Es la primera vez que vamos a estar reunidos y espero ver todos allí. Pero gracias por asistir hoy en esta noche. So hi, everyone. Just want to do final remarks. I want to thank President Burwell for your closing remarks and your commitment and leadership on equity and justice with our university's Inclusive Excellence Plan, the incredible progress that's already been made, and the real visible transformations we've seen underway. Thank you as well to Dr. Ah for your leadership and for supporting myself and the countless number of students and alumni of color. We really very much appreciate your vision and your voice. Thanks as well to our wonderful panelists, Daniel, Rafael, Yami, Sara, and Tiffany, as well as Janet serving as a fantastic moderator. All of you have such powerful voice and presence and advocacy for our community, and very much appreciate each of you. So as Daniel was saying, stepping up, I invite each of you to join with LAA in finding those opportunities to become more involved, if not with LAA, but with other aspects of AU. We want to make a significant impact for future LAA members, future Aguilas. And of course, our own community faces unique challenges being in solidarity with each other. The factors of immigration status, indigenous languages and communities, colorism, class level in the United States, and class level from our own home countries, and colonial status. But I know as Aguilas, we recognize those differences within our respective AU journeys and how essential solidarity and support for future Aguilas is really integral to who we are. Lastly, want to remind everyone that the LAA Spring Brunch is coming up. It's taking place in about a week or so on April 9th, Saturday, from noon to 2. We welcome you to the event. We're very excited for having entertainment and fantastic food, and hopefully I will see all of you there in real time. Thank you again for your attendance and for your future support of LAA and American University. Gracias y buenas noches.